This is a topic I've been dying to talk about. During one of the interviews after Monster Hunter Rise was shown off, the devs confirmed that motion control aiming would be in the game. I want to talk about why this is significant, how I expect the motion controls to work, and how I want them to work.
Dumo Plays.
I have always been interested in different input methods. Everything from voice commands in SOCOM to gesture-based controls in the Wii era, and when Zelda had me close the clamshell of my DS as a form of an input, yeah, that one excites me. I love the creativity, and I love seeing how things are used in unexpected ways. In recent years, Splatoon has come into my life, and motion controls have gone from something that's interesting to something that's functionally amazing. The speed, the control, the accuracy. In the Splatoon world, motion controls aren't a fun gimmick. They're the way the game is best played. And I don't mean that the game is more fun with motion controls. I mean, if you're not using them, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage. There are a few competitive players that can compete with sticks instead of motion, and some of those players are actually significant in the fact that they have overcome the disadvantages and perform well even with sticks. This isn't to say that sticks are horrible, objectively, but that motion is just that good. It's pretty common knowledge at this point that a mouse and keyboard is simply amazing when it comes to accuracy and stability. In fact, mouse and keyboard do not use auto aim or aim assist, whereas controller-based games like Call of Duty do implement an aim assist to make the controllers more manageable. Splatoon is the oddity in that it's a controller-based game, but without any form of aim assist. Instead, we use motion controls as a way to strike a balance between controllers and the mouse and keyboard. Motion aiming is actually closer to mouse and keyboard than it is to dual sticks when we start talking about control speed and accuracy. It still doesn't quite match the mouse because the controller isn't resting on a stable surface like a mouse is, but it gets pretty close. Just a side note, don't worry, you're not going to be forced into motion controls during Monster Hunter Rise. They can be turned off, and honestly, I don't even think you're going to suffer any sort of disadvantage with them off. Even in Splatoon, there's so much more to the game than just aiming. And Monster Hunter will always be more about your knowledge of the monsters than it is going to be about quick movements. So why am I calling this significant? Because Monster Hunter Rise is a very significant game. It's also not a Nintendo IP, and it's pulling players from other platforms. It would be amazing to have players from other platforms get a taste of motion controls and start asking for them in their own games on their respective platforms. All it takes is for Rise to be a very good implementation and for the speedrunners to dedicate time to learning how to use the control scheme. Again, why is this significant? Because it's an opportunity for motion aiming to leave the Nintendo platform and become more mainstream. It really is worth the time it takes to learn. Will the controls be perfect? Probably not in my eyes, but they should be very good, and it will be an interesting showcase of what they can do even in a game like Monster Hunter. How will the motion controls work? Well, I expect them to function more along the lines of Breath of the Wild than Splatoon 2. In Splatoon 2, the motion controls are always active. I doubt this will happen in Monster Hunter Rise. Meanwhile, Breath of the Wild activates motion controls when you perform an action based on aiming, such as pulling back an arrow. I expect any kind of button input which allows for a weapon to be more focused on aim will activate the motion controls for the accuracy. This will include things like the wire bugs. It will also allow for some fast movements and quick aim of wire bugs, which may be something that speedrunners push to master. The greater mobility could lead to better positioning and more time for attacking. But how would I like them to function? Well, I prefer the option to have the motion controls always active. It allows me to check my surroundings quickly, pre-aim before firing off wire bugs, and all told, I just like having the extra control over my camera and really appreciate it for tracking monsters. I know Monster Hunter already has lock-on options to track the monsters, but I personally like being in full control. Unfortunately, learning motion aiming isn't an immediate process, and everyone learns at a different pace. It took me about 30 hours before I could say that I was better with motion than I was with sticks, and it was probably about 60 or so hours before I noticed that I was no longer making input errors based on the control scheme. Just keep in mind, I also had played over 25 years of games before I picked up motion aiming, and the adjustment wasn't really easy for me. However, the time did fly by, but that's just because of how much I was playing Splatoon and how much fun I was having while doing it. In my opinion, it was well worth the effort, and I currently have no interest in playing a shooter without motion controls or at least a mouse and keyboard. I also hope to look forward to having options in the future to implement motion controls for my camera control. I will be doing a video about learning motion controls, how they function, and how you can learn them. This way, anyone who wants to learn them can start. As for now, I would say the best games to use to learn is Splatoon 2. There's also another shooter called Rogue Company, which is a free-to-play game, which has decent motion controls, and also has a training room. If shooters are a hard pass for you, Breath of the Wild is what I think would be the next best implementation. The motion controls are used less than they are in the shooters, so your comfort and progress will be slowed, but it's not a shooter, and it's an absolutely amazing game. You'll get used to the motion controls while using the bow, throwing weapons, and using the Sheikah Slate. If you enjoyed this video, I invite you to leave a like and even subscribe to the channel. Feel free to drop any comments or questions in the comment section below, and if you want to join the Discord server and have some more in-depth conversations there, feel free to join through the link in the description. In the meantime, give your pal Immune a pat on the head from me and have a great day.